All right, this is a Christmas time of the year, and this is a tough message that I'm going to do this morning. In that, the subject matter, it seems to be totally off. I'm going to talk about Mary this morning. And of course, Christmas time is when, everybody gets all, weirded out about certain things. And of all the times of the year, Mary would be more accentuated this time of year than any other year because she was the mother of Jesus and so forth. And so you see her on all the little Christmas cards, you see her on, just everywhere. I remember when I was first saved, this is back in the early 60s, 61, that the culture of the church, when I say the church, I'm talking about the Baptist church, of which I was saved in and grew up in, that the Catholics had made such a big deal about Mary on one end that the Baptists almost felt compelled to go the other direction. So you were almost forced, if you were a Baptist, to put Mary down as such, just because the Catholics had venerated her so high and put her up so far up, that in order to balance it out, it seemed that we had to go the opposite direction. I'm not trying to do that this morning, but I want to bring out certain aspects, certain sayings, certain relationships that Jesus grew up with and that he had to contend with in his life. The Catholics have taken Mary and they have given her immaculate conception. What that simply means is that she was born without sin, just like Jesus. That means that only two people on the face of this planet that have ever lived were born immaculately conceived. Jesus and Mary. So the Catholics believe. That's how high up they put her on this pecking order. And the reason they do that is because they take logic and they just go one step further. They say, well, since Mary was the mother of Jesus and Jesus was God, therefore, ergo, Mary is the mother of God. And that's the basis for their whole thing. You go into, if you're from Mars or the moon, you come down on this planet and you go to any Catholic church and you walk in that door without anybody saying a word, you know exactly who they worship. You know exactly who has the predominance. You know exactly who they venerate. As far as pecking order is concerned, yeah, Jesus is in there. The saints, the apostles, Joseph, they're in there. But the prime one, it's always Mary. So the Catholics, they will give her immaculate conception, born without sin. They will give her perpetual virginity. We know that she was a virgin when Jesus was born. Joseph and her never messed around. She was a virgin. But they say not only was she a virgin when she gave birth to Jesus, but she remained a virgin the rest of her life. All those brothers and sisters of Jesus that are mentioned in the Bible, Catholics say, those were Joseph's kids from a previous marriage. So yeah, the Bible does say that he had brothers and sisters, but they didn't come from Mary, because Mary was born and died a perpetual virgin. So they give that to her. And they make her what is referred to, in theological terms, a co-mediatrix. Jesus is the mediator between God and men. It says there is one God and there is one mediator between God and men, the man Christ Jesus. That's the Bible. Catholics go one step further, and again, using this logic. Since she is the mother of Jesus, Jesus is God, ergo that makes her the mother of God, then she has a part also as being mediator. That's why the Catholics pray to her. Hail Mary, Mother of God, blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus, and blah, 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 with the rosary. It's always to Mary. So because of that, to be a good Baptist back in 1961, you had to go the opposite direction. I'm going to try to find a happy medium here. Catholics will go one other. They'll say, the Bible says that Mary is blessed above all women. Look over in Luke chapter 1. Take that one first here. And make no bones about it. I mean, good grief. If I was a female, if I was a woman, a young girl or whatever, and if I had my choice to go back in history and say, oh, what is the neatest thing that could happen to you in your lifetime, I put my hand up and say to give birth to Jesus Christ. I mean, good grief, there is nothing bigger on this planet than a woman could have bestowed on her by God as to be blessed in that respect, to be the mother of Jesus Christ. There's only one. Of all the billions of women that have lived on the face of this earth, she was picked. So she, in the pecking order of females, she is up there. But the Catholics they go overboard. They'll use the expression, she is blessed above all women. Luke chapter 1, verse 28. Luke chapter 1, verse 28. Let me find it here. And the angel came in unto her and said, Hail, thou that art highly favored. And she was. The Lord is with thee. And he was. Blessed art thou among women. You notice he did not say, Blessed art thou above women. He did not go that far. He said, Blessed art thou among women. So do we bless her? Yeah. Do we venerate her? No. Was she a perpetual virgin? No. She was a virgin when she had Jesus. Is she co-mediatrix? Does she have a hand in our salvation? No. Absolutely not. If the Bible is never clear about anything else, it's Jesus' blood that was shed. It is Jesus' blood that washes away sin. It is Jesus that paid the sacrifice, not Mary. When you go back and you look at the life of Jesus, and there's very, very little written about the life of Jesus. We have the birth aspect of it. We have a little teeny-weeny glimpse when he was around 2 years old. We've got that. We've got a little incident that takes place when he's 12 years old. And then we don't hear anything more from 12 years old till he is around 30 years old. So you got that whole span, there's absolutely nothing. But the few little things that we do, the little glimpses that we can see, the verses that have to do with that period of time or the relationship that he had with his brothers and sisters, it is a very, very telling thing. There's a verse that says that Jesus was tempted in all points such as us, and yet without sin. There's a verse that says that Jesus understands what we go through on an experiential basis. He had a family, that he lived in. He had brothers and sisters. He had a mom and a dad, stepdad. There's the pecking order within the family. There's the rivalries within the family. There's favoritism within the family. I mean, every aspect of the emotional context of which we go through and experience in our lives, Jesus went through the same thing. Joseph died probably when Jesus was in his teens or early manhood. And I can't relate to that on an experiential level because I was in my 50s or so when my dad died. So that wasn't a factor in any impact on my life as a young boy or a young man as such. So if Jesus was in his teens or just in his early 20s when his dad died, that is going to completely, radically change, especially in this culture and in this time period. It's going to change the structure of the family. You keep in mind, they didn't have workman's comp back then. They didn't have food stamps back then. They didn't have any of the social programs that we have now. And so the burden that would have come on Jesus as the eldest male in that family now after Joseph died, it was humongous. But he went through it. He experienced it. As the eldest, and every family can understand this, every person within the family gets this. There is a pecking order. If you're the eldest kid in a family, there is a certain relationship, there's a certain part of that pecking order that you go through. The next kid comes along, his perspective of that family is totally different than the eldest perspective of that family. The one that seems to get hammered the most, the one who has ultimately the more responsibility, the one who is the test case for all these things, it's usually the eldest. They're going to be stricter on him generally because that's the first. They don't really know how to go along with it. By the time the second kid comes along, the parents are worn out, they're tired. They realize that, we didn't have to be maybe this tough on this kid, the eldest. He survived, he's okay, so I'm going to back off on this kid. By the time the third and fourth kid gets along, hey, are they still breathing when they go to bed at night? Great, we did our job. That's it. But that emotional pressure within that family unit, based on where you are as the kid, it's there. It's a reality. I'm not saying it's an end-all, be-all type thing, but it's a component to how we relate, how we get along, how we react to the world around us. I just look around this room and I can see that dynamic within the families and so forth. I was the eldest. I thought my folks were strict as can be on me. I got away with a lot of stuff because in those days, you were out of the house so much. You weren't underfoot playing video games and watching TV and all this kind of stuff. You're gone. You're out. You came home for supper. You came home for lunch or so. You came home for bedtime. And that'd basically be it. The rest of the time you're out. I thought my folks were really strict on me. Then my sister came along. They weren't nearly as strict on her as they were on me. Same thing with my brother. Then my youngest sister comes along. Holy mackerel. She had the run of the house. She could do whatever she wanted. And as the eldest, you notice that. You see that. And you make comparisons. Well, they wouldn't let me do that. I had to be in at 10 o'clock, at prom night or something. And letting her stay out to midnight, and all this stuff, it goes into the mix. I don't think that Mary ever had a sit down. Now imagine, she had a unique problem. She's got Jesus, the eldest. There was at least 4 brothers and at least 2 sisters. all, varying ages, step ladder down, I'm sure. I don't think that she ever had a sit down with him and said, look, this is a unique family. You see that kid over there? Your older brother? Yeah, your older brother. Yeah, he gets away with everything. He's the Son of God. He is the Redeemer of mankind. He is ultimately going to be responsible for saving your soul. Can you imagine how that conversation must have gone down in the house? They never had it. I mean, how do you, as a mother, sit down with 6 kids and point to one of them and say, hey, he's special. He's going to walk on water. He's going to raise the dead. He's going to multiply the loaves and the fishes. He's going to walk through walls. He's going to raise himself from the dead after 3 days. You think that wouldn't have caused a little bit of tension within that house? Oh, there's Jesus, he gets A's on all his tests. Oh, yeah, he's the smartest one around here. Oh, he's the favorite. Oh, Mom and Dad love him the best. He can do whatever he wants. He's the golden child. He's this, he's that. And we say, that probably didn't happen. But you know what? I think it kind of did happen. I think the resentment and the jealousy that those siblings had against their oldest brother, Jesus, was deep and profound. And I think it had a bearing on everybody in that family. For some reason, Mary did not bring up the fact of who he was and what his job was going to be. Look over in Matthew chapter 13. And you can begin to see through the cracks a little bit by some of the things that Jesus said throughout his life. Matthew 13, verse 57. Matthew 13, 57. It says, and they were offended in him, because Jesus saith unto them, a prophet is not without honor. In other words, everybody, honors a prophet. A prophet is not without honor, save in his own country and in his own house. He's saying this from a personal, not just, I'm God and I kind of know this stuff. He's saying this from personal experience. A prophet is not without honor except in his own house. I mean, these kids, they went into the bathroom after Jesus had been in the bathroom. They saw him, wake up in the morning. They saw him get maybe preferential treatment from Mary, baby, coddled, favorite, whatever. And it's not surprising that Jesus would understand this from a conceptual basis. Everybody else here loves me. John loves me, Matthew loves me, Peter loves me. They all respect, they adore me, they venerate me, they put me up on a pedestal. He says, but you know what? In my own house, it wasn't like that. Gets worse. John chapter 7. John chapter 7. Now, when Jesus uttered these words that we're going to look at, he's 32-ish. He's been preaching for over 2 years into his ministry. He's already walked on water. He's already multiplied loaves and fishes. He's already done these miracles and so forth. He's had all these run-ins and fights with the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scribes and the lawyers and so forth. He's got crowds following him to the extent that half the time he preached, he had to preach from a boat out in the lake because the crowds around him were just so thick that he couldn't function on land half the time. Every time he went into a house, the crowds were crowded in so tight and packed in there so jammed that nobody could function. They couldn't eat. They couldn't do anything. One time a guy wanted to get healed. He's in there. They want to get to Jesus to get this guy healed. They can't get through the door. They can't get, scrunched through the people. And so they end up tearing the roof apart and lower this guy down on ropes in the middle of the house so that Jesus can have access to him. This is the type of lifestyle that he led wherever he went. He was a rock star in that sense. In the midst of this, John chapter 7, look at verse 5. It says, "For neither did his brethren believe in him." This is in the middle of his ministry. He's left home. I don't know what age he was when he left home. We know he could have stayed there till 30 years old because as the head of the house, he was responsible for the house. So maybe he stayed with them until 30 years old. He goes off on his ministry and he leaves. But even after 2 years of ministry, his brothers and sisters did not believe on him. That's an amazing thing. Does that mean that Jesus led his life in such a way that he's lived such an example that they couldn't see the goodness in him? They couldn't see, what he was trying to do? Do you mean to tell me that Jesus himself went 30 years and never said a word to anybody about this kind of stuff? That he went 30 years before he opened his mouth and says, "Oh, by the way"? You mean his brothers and sisters lived with him all their lives and never one time did he mention the fact that they've got to get themselves right? That they've got to listen to him and trust and believe on him? Did he live his whole life in the house and just didn't say a word about any of this stuff? Is that why it says they didn't believe on him? Or were they so offended maybe by the social politics within the house and the way they grew up that they were offended? They were mad at him. They were PO'd at him. Who knows? But the fact is that he lived with them all their lives. And at this point, they did not believe in him. Now, we know that at least two later would, James and Judas. But we don't know about the rest. And then there's this strange attitude that Jesus seems to express to Mary throughout his life. It seems that every time that they have a dialogue, a conversation between themselves that is written in the book, we know there was a million things they said to each other. Go clean up your room, get in, it's time to eat, wash your hands, do this, do that, take care of your brothers and sisters, blah, blah, blah. There's a million things that were said, obviously, in the course of a regular household. But the ones that have been recorded in the book, there's not that many of them. There's just 4 or 5. And every single one of them is a perceived, or at least it seems like, a put down. The first recorded one that we have, you remember the case when Jesus was 12 years old. And the family had been to Jerusalem for the Passover. They were on their way back home. A day's journey back, they finally realized Jesus, 12-year-old kid, is not there. He's not in the caravan. He's not in the group. Okay, where's Jesus? Hey, but I don't know. I didn't see him today. Did you see him? No, I didn't see him. Oh, good grief. So now they go back another day back to Jerusalem, and then it takes them another day before they find him. So there's 3 days he's out there by himself. And of course, when they find him in the temple, and he's lecturing the scribes and the Pharisees. 12 years old. And so Joseph and his mom, they find him and they said, "Hey, what are you doing? Where have you been? How come you split and you didn't say anything to anybody? You just took off." And he says, "Wist ye not, or don't you know, that I have to be about my Father's business?" Well, what do you mean, don't you know? Of course they knew. The angel, before Mary conceived and gave birth, the angel came and told her, "You're going to have a son." I'm not married. Doesn't make any difference. God's going to take care of this one. Gee whiz, how's that going to work? God's going to make you pregnant without Joseph, without anybody else around. It's going to be a virgin birth. And that little boy, he's going to grow up to be the Savior of the world. Mary knew this stuff. Mary understood his uniqueness. Obviously, if nobody else did, she did. Mary understood all this stuff. But obviously she didn't relate this stuff to those around her. And so when Jesus uses that expression, "Wist ye not," or "don't you know," she knew. But she just had either forgotten, or she didn't put two and two together, or she just didn't want to say anything to cause division within the family. I can't show favoritism to him because all the other kids are going to get ticked off. I can't show him what we really think about him because everybody else is going to be offended, and there's going to be nothing but World War III in that house. And so the verse that says there back in Luke chapter 2, after the angel had come and explained all these things, it says, "But Mary kept these things and pondered them in her heart." She didn't relate them. She just thought about it. She just kept it in there. Now Joseph knew, because the angel had told Joseph, the kid that is Mary's carrying, she didn't mess around on you. This is of God. This is a virgin birth. So Joseph knew. And obviously Mary knew. But what Mary related to the rest of the family, it could have been zilch. So the first time that we have recorded conversation between Jesus and his mom, it's a minor put down. Here's a 12-year-old saying, "You don't know that I'm supposed to be doing this?" First miracle that he ever performed. John chapter 2. John chapter 2. Boy, and this is a biggie. First miracle, he's invited to a wedding. And he goes to the wedding. And there's wine being served at the wedding. And it's evidently a rich guy's, girl getting married, because the dad's got the very best wine out there, but they run out. Either he invited a whole bunch of guzzlers or, something. But they run out of wine. And so everybody's saying, what do we do? What do we do? I mean, it's going to break the party up. I mean, nobody wants to just sit there and talk to anybody. No, we got to be drinking all this stuff. So they come to Jesus' mom. Said, hey, can you talk to him? Maybe he can do something. Verse 3. John chapter 2, verse 3. And when they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus saith unto him, this is Jesus now, they have no wine. So either she had noticed or somebody had mentioned to her something, that they'd run out of wine. So she comes to Jesus. Hey, they've run out of wine. Now, I don't know what she was expecting him to do. We don't know that he had ever, performed miracles before. We're just not sure. At least they're not recorded. This is the first recorded miracle. But what he may or may not have done in the household as a kid or a young man coming up, we don't know. I don't think he walked through walls at that point. I don't think he, sat down and Mary says, gee whiz, there's 6 kids here. We only have enough food for 4. I don't think he sat there and multiplied loaves and fishes all day long to keep the family going. I really and truly think that this was his first miracle. I don't think he did miracles when he was in his teens and his 20s and so forth. I think this was the first one. So why they mentioned it to Mary, it's a guess. And what she expected him to do, I'm not really sure. But she comes to him. They have no wine. Oh, gee whiz, shucks, Mom. Sorry about that. Here's a couple of bucks. Run down to the store and get a couple of jugs of wine. Bring it back. Or he could have said, hey, what's that got to do with me? I'm just one of the guests here. I'm not part of the wedding family or wedding party here or anything else. No. What does he say? Look at verse 4. Jesus saith unto her, woman. Ooh, that's a little cold. That's a little, woman, what have I to do with thee? Wow, all she said was they ran out of wine. It's like he's jumping right down her throat here. Is he doing the same type of thing that I saw in my early years as a Christian? Him knowing that, a few hundred years after this event takes place here, that there's going to be an element of Christianity which is going to venerate this woman, elevate this woman to the level of godhood. You think maybe he didn't see that one coming? And you think maybe that he knew that there was going to be certain key verses in this book that had to do with her and about her? And you think maybe he didn't see through the corridor of time and say, I've got to nip this in the bud. He could have said something like, oh, dear, wonderful, loving mother. Oh, the one that gave me birth. Me, the Son of God. Ergo, my mom, the Mother of God. What would you like me to do, Mother? Would you like me to do this or that? No, he comes back with, woman, what have I got to do with thee? Matthew chapter 12. Matthew 12. Jesus out preaching one day. He's in a house. Verse 46. While he, that's Jesus, while he yet talked to the people, behold, his mother and his brethren stood without, desiring to speak with him. Now, he's in the house, a whole bunch of people, strangers, acquaintances. But his mom and his brothers and sisters, family, blood, they're outside the house. And they send a message in. We want to talk to Jesus. Okay. Verse 47. Then one said unto him, behold, thy mother and thy brethren stand without, desiring to speak with thee. Oh, gee whiz, let me rush right out. Hey, well, you guys just hold it here for a second. I'm going to be back in a minute. My mom's out there. The Mother of God is out there. She spoke. I have to run. I'm a good obedient son. Whatever my mom says, hey, boom, going to do it. Didn't quite work out that way. Verse 48, but he answered and said unto him that told him, who is my mother? And who are my brethren? And he stretched forth his hand towards his disciples and said, behold, my mother and my brethren. Wow, if I didn't know any better, I'd say that maybe his bringing up childhood lacked a little bit of continuity here, or a little bit of something. Now keep in mind, Jesus is pure human too. I mean, I know he's God at the same time, but he's pure human. Is there a little bit of resentment peeking out of the doorway here? Remember, when Mary had a chance to explain all this stuff, she just pondered them within her heart. She didn't want to cause dissension in the family. She didn't want to play favorites in the family. So the mom and the brothers and sisters are outside. Hey, they want to talk to you. Who is my mom? Who is my brothers and sisters? These guys right here. Wow. I don't care how you twist it and fine tune it and sugarcoat it. That is a put down. You can go back to the Greek and Hebrew. You can go to the Aramaic. I don't care where you go. That is a put down. Does it rise to the level of sin? No. Remember, Jesus said one time, be ye angry and sin not. A lot of people say, oh, if you get angry, oh, you're sinning. Oh, you can't get angry. That's a sin to get angry. Nah, forget it. This is the guy who took the whip, goes into the temple and starts whapping everybody he can lay his hands on, flipping over tables, setting all the animals free and so forth, ruining their livelihood, embarrassing them, chasing them out. No sin there. There's a fine line. Be ye angry and sin not. Obviously, there's a point where you get angry and you are sinning. But obviously, there's a point you get angry and you're not sinning. So, figure it out. And one last thing. John chapter 19. And I've always found this one strange. And it wasn't until I kind of sort of started to put this together as I've done this morning that it started to make a little teeny bit of sense. But I'm just as confused as you guys are in this whole thing. I don't have any answers for anybody today, so if that's what you're looking for, the big finale and the big crescendo at the end, forget it. I'm just getting the big old flup. John chapter 19. And we've got the crucifixion. And we've got Jesus hanging on the cross. And he's just about ready to die. And at the foot of the cross, of all the disciples, everybody fled except John. John was still with him to the very end. Peter had fled. Judas had betrayed him. Matthew was gone, Thaddeus was gone, Bartholomew was gone, they're all split. They all got afraid. But John is there still. His mom is there. And I think it says the other Mary was there, and that's probably John the Baptist's mom. John the Baptist and Jesus were cousins. So the other, they were there. And Jesus looks down, and he sees his mom, and he sees John standing with her. Verse 27. Then said he to the disciple, Behold thy mother. Well, John wasn't the son of Mary. What Jesus is doing as the eldest son, and it's almost like a role reversal type thing. When the parent has the kids, the little baby, they can't feed themselves, they can't clothe themselves, they don't know how to walk, they can't talk, the whole baby type thing. And the parent is still responsible all through the little adolescent stage, the kid learning how to walk and talk and play and all that kind of stuff, through the teen years where all the emotional, hormonal flub up is coming and so forth. And finally in our culture, theoretically, when you're 21, then you are considered an adult. You're on your own, basically. Life goes on. But now you get to the other end of life, the other end of the spectrum. And now you're back to diapers again, half the time. You're back to, you can't really see that good. You need somebody to take you by the hand sometimes. You need somebody to feed you, or at least get the food and prepare the food. It's almost like a dual reversal here. And I can see Jesus being concerned about his mom and wanting her taken care of. And it begs the question. Read 27 again. Then saith he to the disciple, this is John he's talking about. We can go to other Gospels to get that. And from that hour, that disciple took her into his own home. Another gospel says to Mary, Mary, there's John, he's your son now. John, there's Mary, that's your mom now. So he's basically transferring his, not authority as such, but as the eldest son, the responsibility. He's now giving it to John to take care of his mom until she dies. It begs the question, what were the other 6 kids doing? He's got 4 brothers. He's got 2 sisters. How come neither of them Jesus gave responsibility for the care and the watchfulness over his mom? And again, to me, it just screams dysfunctional. He could have given her to one of his brothers, obviously, or even if he had a responsible, sister type thing. Hey, take care of mom in her old age, find a little nook in the house someplace for her, throw her, 3 meals a day, and just, let her sit there and mumble to herself, whatever. But he didn't. He gives Mary to a total stranger. I'm talking, in a family type sense. I'm sure she knew John. John knew them. But he's not blood. He's not a relative. He's not responsible in any way, shape, or form until Jesus gives him that responsibility. So, make of it what you will. I didn't mean any of this, like I said, to be a put down to Mary, because I admire her in that sense more than any other female that's ever lived on the face of this earth. She gave birth to Jesus. That's it. I don't care what she did after that or before that. That right there is the plum. That there is the gold medal. That is it. You don't get any better than that if you're a female. That you get to bear Jesus. But I think when we go through the Bible, we get in little ruts and tracks that is hard to get out of sometimes. We get into a certain way of thinking. We get into a certain pattern of knee-jerk reactions. And we don't see things the way they really are. I think Jesus had a dysfunctional family. And I think it was dysfunctional from the standpoint that Mary did not want to show favoritism, and so she kept the identity, if you please, or the purpose of what Jesus really was from the other kids, to maintain peace in the family. So now they're adults. Jesus is preaching. None of them believe on him. Wow. They come to see him. Who is my mom? Who are my brothers and sisters? She asked him a favor at a wedding. Woman, what have I to do with you? 12 years old, getting in her face. Wist ye not I must be about my Father's business? Poor Joseph probably sitting there thinking, oh crap, where does that put me here in this, bandwagon? I think he had a dysfunctional family. I'm not saying that Jesus made it a dysfunctional family. He's a little kid. He has no say in this kind of stuff. But I think that's the environment in which he was brought up in. And I think in some small way, if we can get into that and relate to that, then when he says something to the effect, he was tempted in all points such as us. He knows what it's like. Going through the experiences that every one of us has gone through in our respective families. He knows what it's like to have favoritism. He knows what it's like to grow up in an environment of which nobody really understands you. Nobody gets you. Maybe nobody likes you. Maybe they resent you. He gets it because he's lived through it. He's been there. So when you come to him in prayer, when you come to him with your problems, he gets it. He knows. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this book. I thank you for, at least on a personal, this is for me strictly personal. I thank you, Father, for the fact that you've given me this odd quirk of seeing a passage of Scripture and not necessarily seeing it the same way everybody else does. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying that I get it. I'm not saying that I'm deeper and more wonderful than anybody else. You know I'm not. But I think at least you have given me the ability to be able to see the other side of something. To be able to connect dots that at least they make sense to me. It opens up the book to me. It gets deeper for me. And Father, I pray, because I can't do this, I pray that the Holy Spirit would take these verses and maybe take these words, adapt them to every individual that hears this stuff, and apply it to their hearts in the way that you, Lord, want it applied. Maybe totally 180 degrees different than how it affects me. But Lord, I thank you that you understand what I went through as a kid. You understand what I've seen my kids go through under my supervision when I had them. I see the results of the way they raised their kids and so forth. And it's a never-ending cycle. And the fact that you can understand, and the fact that you can get it on an experiential level, I thank you with all my heart. So that when I come to you in prayer, it's not just some abstract philosophical thing. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Father, bless your people, each and every one of them, in Jesus' name.